tail should be in relation to the hook.
Do MTA.
What was that? 3 hook lengths? Yep. So they need 1, 2, 3. Yep.
Do it all.
Why?
Just sounds too long.
No, because he likes a long, thin fly. You don't. It's not up to me or Nick or you. You tie it to how you want it to be, and I think longer is better than short.
So there's no science, it's just preference.
No, it's your preference. And here's the thing: say you've cracked the code for the greatest fly that ever walked the planet, you've got to be able to copy it. So what I'm suggesting is you now never tie a fly with only one hook. You now get another hook, right? And you work out how far behind the tail you want that tail to go. Because the next fly you tie, because this was the greatest hook that GT's ever saw, I now want to copy.
Like that, right.
So Nick likes 3. Right? So there's
Real
1 hook
close-ups.
length, 2 hook lengths, 3 hook lengths.
Second
What
moving
I would do
forward
now is
ways.
put a bit of masking tape here and a line, because I can now copy that fly every time. Brian doesn't like 3 hooks, he likes 2.5. So he goes 1, 2, puts his mind. You might like 2. It's up to you. But if the secret to fly tying is copying what you've developed, right? Right, so we've got our tail. You never see it. You watched me head tie this how many times? Because like Nick, I think the further back those tail hackles are hanging, the better that thing's going to have action, right? This is all hand movements from this on, right? I'm going to take my vice hand, I'm going to come in behind the thread, and I'm going to hold the thread there. Oh, I should have got a rubbish mention. No, that's all right. It's only the club cap, and I'll get the here's the organiser. So I've cut that, I haven't moved these fingers here yet, and I'm now going to clear all the fluff off the butts, right? Oh, good stuff.
Put it in.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Or throw on the floor.
deer hair strip your boss.
Come close, mate. All right. Now, I've got a tight, you can see how tight I'm hanging onto this, right? Now what I'm going to do is the butts are here like that, right? Now what I'm going to do with this hand is I'm going to come in, I'm going to squeeze with my thumb and index finger and release with this hand, and then tighten again. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to roll it round, and I'm going to line the butts until I can hold the feathers reasonably well. I'm not quite there yet. Like that. Right, now I'm holding them across the quills with the feather upright. Yep. So that means if I can hold them like that, I can tie them all like that. Right, so what I'm going to do now this is where I can't look at it from this point forward. I'm going to hold my neck. Well, I do. Right, so I'm going to lay it down on my thread. I'm going to go 2 loose wraps across the top. Right, now this is the trick of it, right? All of those butts are like this at the moment, right? So now what I'm going to do is use my thumb and I'm going to manoeuvre those butts like that around the hook. This way you don't have to roll around, right?
That's
all right.
the simple one.
It was hang off. Now here we go, right? Now what I've got to do without looking at it, I've pressed it down. I'm now going to tie forward with increasing pressure to dramatic, nearly breaking strain of the thread. Now I'm going to come back up again, increasing the pressure past where I started, and now I'm going to lift the butts at 30 degrees, and I'm going to tie it down, and you can see I've open woven it. Right, now I'm going to come forward, increasing the pressure down on that hook, and there's your feathers tied on the hook. If you look at it before that point, it'll go crooked. You'll notice I've open woven the first bit. Sorry for rushing, but I want to get this first bit over and done with, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my feather platform. So I'm going to do that reasonably neat, and I'm going to go slightly around the bend. You'll see I'm about halfway between the point and the bow. Yep? Alright, so I'll cut that off. Now this first step I want to show you, right? This first step is, how does everyone tie their feathers in? Right? This fly here I've got to do 10 feathers, right? I'm going to tie this out of the absolute top of the range shit that you've ever come across, right? So we want to earn some money for the drinking crew.
Ooh, look at this.
I had a pound of these about 25 years ago. This is all that's left. Do you think I share them? No, bloody way. These, the most beautiful saddle hackles you've ever seen in your life. You can't even buy them. Right, so How would you put 10 feathers on this fly? It doesn't have to be a pristine, beautiful dot. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the feathers, right? We're going to put them over our knee, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 lots of 5, which is 10 feathers. So we've got our feathers, right? Now, if you're going to do a 2-0, you would use probably 3 a side, 4-0, 4 a side. But because it's a GT fly, we're going to do actually 10 feathers at once. Yeah, not 5 a side, then 5 a side, whatever we do, right? So what we're going to do, take the feathers and we're going to put them curved down like this, right? Curved down each side. And the best way to do it, don't do it in a draft, is to put the tip on the tip and then put your finger in the middle. My hand's a bit sweaty too. So that's 3, you count me. I've been drinking. And you'll see I've got a bent feather which I put in the middle. When you buy a packet of strung saddle hackles, 30% will be shit, 30% will be okay, 30% will be good. All the good feathers you save, then they're your outside feathers, all the shit's inside, you know, because the only thing that people see is the outside feathers.
Correct, you can straighten them by steaming them?
Yes, you can, that's exactly right. But in essence, you know, do you really need a straight feather? Well, if you go and you use your fly in salt water once and you put it back and you put it back into your fly box, the feathers are twisted. So I can't understand why you would actually want to straighten the feathers in the first place. As a commercial fly tyer, if you think the feathers are shit, you won't buy it. So I have to make sure the outside feathers are good. And then if you take it a step further, does everyone know what a Sempter fly is? A Sempter fly, right? A Sempter fly is if we're going to tie a deceiver, right, and the way we're going to tie the tail today is a deceiver style, so the curve's in like that, right? But the thing is, the feather does this. A fish swims this way, there's no action. So if you put the feather like that, like a flat wing, you've now got the fish swimming, you've got the feather swimming properly. And if a Sempter fly has these saddle hackles tied in a hexagonal shape all the way around a piece of bucktail, so that all the tail's doing this all over the place. So a lot of us now tie our tails not like a deceiver, but like a Sempter fly. On a flat wing, you must tie a neck hackle up that way, opposite way to what the flat wing goes. And what happens is that it doesn't just give it action, but it ticks to one side of the neck hackle like that, which gives it greater, even more action. Right, so we've got our 2 stabs, right? I'm a bit out on the tails here, but that doesn't matter. So what you do now, and from this point forward, we don't look at it. Right? You don't sort of get halfway through it and you go, oh, I want to look at this, because it won't work. If you do the hand movements, get to the end of it, the feathers are right. So I take my finger and I put it in the middle of these hackles here. You might want to stand up to see this. Kick it up so you can get underneath it, right? And now I'm going to turn it over the other way, right? Gently, you don't have to rush because you're not tying 5 on one side and 5 on the other. Right, so I've got my feathers curved that way. I'm going to do the same thing with this patch here, and I'm now going to come tip to tip, and I'm going to grab it in the middle. Right, so now I've got my 10 feathers sitting like that. Right, does that look pretty good? Yeah? Right, now what we're going to do, I've got my flash, heaps of flash. All right.
Dollar stream.
Now, it's not about what you see, it's about hand movements. Fly tying's not about how quickly you can turn this bloody bobbin over the top, right? This fly has about 130 hand movements. If I put 1 or 2 extra turns like this, I can increase that to 220 hand movements real quick. So it means I can't tie as many. So it's not about how quickly you turn, it's counting how many times you go over the top. So we're going to tie this either side of this in one motion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it around this thread, and my bobbin's just a bit stretched. I'm going to wrap it around this thread. Now what I want to do, I'm going to hold it in my thumb and index finger, and then I'm going to rotate it up to my ring finger and my middle finger, and with looking at Murray, I'm going to put it down straight down the side and it's on top. Right? Simply because I have got it wrapped on top of the hook. So now we have the flash down either side. Yep. And you want the flash longer than your feather, right? Can someone tell me why? Because you have all little toads in the water and they'll bite the tips off your feather. They'll bite the tips off your bucktail, the little mongrels, right? So this way they bite the material that's you can sacrifice, right? All right. Next thing is, we put on some bucktail. Now, we're going to put a lead eye, we're going to put a nickel eye up the front here, right? So what's going to happen here is we only put a shoulder of bucktail for two reasons, right? The shoulder creates bulk in this part of the fly, but what it also does, it helps to kill the weight here because the bucktail has air in it. Yep, yep. So we don't want bucktail from here, right? This is the stuff that has no air. It has a little bit of air in it. It's really easy to tie with, right? It doesn't flare. The stuff that people don't like using is this stuff. This is the stuff you want, right? This is full of air because what we're going to counteract is a 1/4 ounce Diamond nickel eye, right? So you can't really use bucktail that doesn't have a lot of air in it, right? And because it's a big fly, we're going to use a fair chunk of this stuff, right? When you're doing yours, right, which is a smaller fly, you want to take all that shorter stuff out, right? Right? Just to get rid of it. It just makes it easier to tie and takes a bit of bulk out. Does everyone hand stack their bucktail? Yes. Yeah. You'll find you'll get 3 times the amount of fly out of your material if you hand stack it. We did that another one. Right, so I'm going to measure it. Right, get half the length of the tail. Right, because that way it's going to taper nicely from a good shoulder. I'm going to come in with my vice hand. I'm going to grab that and I'm going to cut across the top of it. And then what I'm going to do is put this directly on top with 2 wraps or 3 wraps. And what I'm going to do is take my thumb and I'm going to push it around the top half of the hook like that. Now you watch what happens when I pull on that. It's going to flare, right? Everyone hates that, don't they? Yeah. Don't hate it. No, that's exactly right. The more air that's in this, the more action it's got, right? People will tell you can't use the bottom end of the bucktail. Well, let me tell you a story about the bottom end of the bucktail. There's a famous fly tyer at the moment that's got, everyone's been tying these flies, Bob Popovich. And he developed a great fly called a beast fly and a bulkhead and all that. The reason he developed that fly is because for the last, I've had the shop 30 years, so when we first started tying commercially, we would take the bucktail and cut it off there and throw this away. And now, because of Popovich, he developed a fly pattern tying procedure that utilised this part of your bucktail. Yep. Alright, that's not bullshit. Alright, so let's just make this a little bit neater. And because it's 8/0, I've got to put a bit more thread on it than what you guys would put on for your, 2/0s, 4/0s. And a 2/0, 4/0 is a really good size to fish in the estuary for something bigger. Yeah? It is a very. What I'm going to do here now, has everyone ever used a cape? Right, you got left and right hand feathers.
Grizzly hackles are expensive.
They are very expensive. Right, what we're going to do with this saddle hacker, right, with this grizzly, we want the grizzly to go up in the air like that because this is creating a shoulder and a pattern on it, right? So on this side, so you guys can see it, well, it'll be this feather here, right? Time, but you can actually tie these in. You can actually tie these in 2 at a time and then splay them. If you use the same technique, you can tie them in 2 at a time, and then splay them manually. Good, but we'll do it this way. Righto. Now, so this is the main bulk of your pin thing, right? The first thing is you can't tie an eye on tight if the threads underneath are loose. Right, so right from and you notice I've come back over my threads and I'm holding tension here, right? So I'm going to go right up behind the eye, so it's nice and tight. I'm going to come back again to where I'm going to put my eyes on, and I'm going to do three wraps one way and 3 wraps the other way, right? And I'm going to have a look to see if it's in the right place. Well, I know it's in the right place, I'll put it there. Now notice, since I put these 6 wraps on, even though I've been talking and drinking and stuff, I've not released the pressure here. Right? From this point forward to the end, you can't release the pressure, right? So, I'm going to put it over a bit, and what I am the back quadrant center of the table. So I'm going to go under the hook shank to my side, back of the eye. Plenty of tension. If you can see this, you'll probably see it's bending. Right? See how much pressure I've got on that? That's how much pressure is going to go through the whole time. Diagonally across the front, underneath to the front my side, diagonally across. Now that's a figure of 8. You do 4 of those first. Finish at your starting point. Now I've got to tighten it. So I come underneath the eye to the front, diagonally across the top, underneath the eye to the front. Now I go across and under the eyes to tighten it and back to my starting point. Now I do another 4, tighten it, do another 4 tie down, figure of 8, unders and overs, and then tighten it. I do, now because there's a bigger fly, I've got to do 3 lots of 4s, but you can do 4, 4, 2, 2, 2, 2, right? So I've got to do a few more on this.
So that Yamaha proves it.
Oh, I'll let you feel how tight the eyes are because it's not glued, right?
You put super glue on.
Yeah, hang on, that's not, you wait, Murray. Righto, tell me if they're tight. Yeah, they're not glued.
Oh yeah, they're tight.
They're tight.
They're
Right.
tight.
Now you glue it. No use gluing it if it's not tight to start with, right? Now, what glue do I use, right? Now, I use head cement, not epoxy. I don't use flaming nail polish or anything like that, because what you need is to have a glue which will flow through the waxed nylon. This is flat waxed nylon, so it's waxed, right, to start with, right? So not all glues will go through it, okay? So what I use is Wapsi water-based head cement. Not only does it soak through, it shrinks. So if this is already tight, imagine if it shrinks even more. I can snap a quarter inch lead eye, tying it in, glue on it, will just snap the eye completely. Right? That's why I use nickel.
Yes, but nickel or brass, you don't go to tungsten.
Tungsten's even softer than lead.
But it's heavier.
Yes, it is. So if I wanted to push water, I'll use that and put tungsten wire behind it, because the tungsten eyes are soft. Yeah, very soft. Yeah. A pin thing is where you have a series of hackles wound on the hook, right? The thing is that you tie the feather in and you wrap the feather around, and you've still got the quill there. And the quill is actually the weak point in your hackle, because if a fish comes in, bites it, breaks the hackle, the feather unwinds. Yep. So what we're going to do is a beautiful bit of marabou. God. You can see I picked the best. So we've got a pink hackle, right? Now this is a marabou plume. I use marabou plumes most of the time rather than blood feathers. That's a plume, right? A blood feather's about that long. But you can still use blood feathers, right? But
Yeah, with the thicker
if,
stem.
eh?
With the thicker stem.
No, thinner stem. This has got the
Thinner
thicker
stem.
stem. The only trouble is with a blood feather is you'll notice all the barbells are short and long.
Yeah, short.
They taper, right? If you think outside the square, you can do this, right? I'm using a Petitjean tool, right? Now Petitjean developed this style of tying for trout, and then he put out some tools but you can do the same thing if you get a block of foam, this thick, this wide, right? Put a slot in it, right? Then I'm just going to use the tool, right? So I'm going to pull the feather down into this tool, right? To get on my barbells like this. I'm going to chop off, and none of this stuff do you throw out, right? You keep it all. It's nice to throw it out, right?
And some thread as well. Yeah, careful.
If you get a piece of foam and cut a slot in it, lay your feather on that with the quill directly over your slot, get a piece of wire and go into the foam. I used to use a bulldog clip for this, right? But it's too strong. What it does, it actually, if you do this same thing with bucktail, it'll crease the bucktail and make it wrong, right? But if you have a soft plastic clip that has very little tension on it, it's a lot better. I've got this, I'm going to lay it in the dubbing loop, right? And then I'm going to just release it into the dubbing loop like that, right? I'm going to spread it out.
Far out.
Now I've removed the quill. On this fly, this size fly, if I was going to use it for GT and it was my fly, commercial fly I'd use this thread. My fly I'd use gel spun polyethylene with a breaking strain of about, I don't know, 30 pound. Then it'll never come apart. Righto, so now what I'm going to do is spin it. Right? Spin this up, right? Now marabou is quite a soft fibre, isn't it?
Yep.
You've got to be careful with it, haven't you? Haven't you?
Yes.
You've got to be real careful with it, haven't you?
It is,
Really?
It is.
You've got to be real careful with it.
That's
This is
like
wire.
cats flying around.
This is
Is
wire.
that for the
Stall it.
cat? Is that for the cat?
That's
Stall
like
it
cat's
from
hairbrush.
Benji Pops.
Exactly right. Best thing for dubbing, right? It's wire. Now, if I can do that with it, what can a bloody fish do to it? Right? Very important thing, right? Not my idea.
Can you overspin it?
Yes, you can break the thread. That's exactly why I'd use a gel spun polyethylene thread.
Is that the only thing you can do to it if you overspin it?
There's, what do you mean?
Or is there anything else that would happen if you did overspin it besides breaking it?
If you did overspin it, depends on the material you're using. If you had, you can do this same thing with belly hair and make a deer hair head. In which case, if you overspin it, you'll cut the hair, it'll fall out. Yeah. But it depends what you're using. I mean, I do this same technique, right? Looks pretty shitty, eh? So, let's get rid of this thread and get the wire brush on it, right? Right, so we're going to comb it forward first. And then we're going to comb it back. Right.
I've been using a brass barbecue cleaner brush for a dubbing brush here. Like big wide one like this. Yeah?
Now we're going to tie back
Awesome.
over that thread just to lay it down a bit, right? And we're going to make another dubbing loop, right? Now,
Great Northern Blacks.
when I tie my
Black Marlins,
pink
Black
things, I
Marlins.
don't just use one feather, right? Because this feather here is really only to fill the gap at the back of the fly and give it a bit more action, right? Now what I'm going to do is put a stiffer feather up the front. I'm going to use slapping feather, right? Does anyone know what a slapping feather is? Yeah, it's the shittiest looking feather you ever seen in a packet. No, serious, it is. For years, I looked at these feathers and I'm thinking, God, what are you ever going to use that for?
Don't they tie big blue water flies with it?
Hey? Yeah. And white flies, all that sort of stuff. But you look at this thing, you know, and I used to go, oh, it's a shit. In actual fact, that's a bloody good feather. No, it is. Because what you're looking at in the feather is this damn stuff. So it doesn't matter if it's all curled up and twisted over like, you know, like my bloody knees, you know, so. But this is a big fly, so we've got to pick the biggest of the feathers that are in here, right? So I need 2 for this one, right? Shower in 10 minutes, look at that. Righto, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull one feather down, find where the feather's wide. Remember, you only use of your material what you want to use, right? You're the fly designer of what you want to get, right?
Or fly dressing, isn't it?
Yeah, you're a fly dresser, yeah. I call it one really famous salmon fly dresser once, a fly tyer. So I didn't think I was going to get out of it. Man, not a fly tyer, I'm a fly dresser. The funniest part was he's never used to fly bites. He shook my hand, near broke it. Anyway, so I've got 2 feathers, I've reversed them, right? Because you can see what I want on that pattern, yeah? So now what I'm going to do is get my little fucking tool, or you'll get what you would do, lay it across a bit of foam, get a bit of wire, pull it down into the slit in the foam, bring in your flaming clip and away you go, right? So what I'm, hang on, see, I want to get those packles, those bit of barbells there as well, right? So we're going to pull them together, pull them down, right?
If you had the same ends to end, you'd end up with a tapered.
Yeah, but so you might decide you want a tapered head for a particular reason. Yeah, see, I don't really want that for this fly. All I'm doing, guys, is showing you, you know, a technique. You can take that technique and you can tie any fly you want. Right, so I've got my 2 feathers. Bit wonky at one end, but that's all right. That's all right. We got another bid yet, there, Nick? Hey? Oh, that's all right. That's all right. More than we thought we'd get. Right, so I've got both quills out of there. You could, if you want to think outside the square, I could have laid some flash in there as well. Do whatever you want to do. You can make synthetic. I've done it with Zonka strip with bunny hair that's only this long to make little tapered heads and stuff. It's really good stuff. Now, as the feather gets shorter, this gets a bit harder, right? So you've got to just be a little bit quicker with it. All right, let's move this up.
That spit's worth $2. That's
Yeah, that should have put it up a bit.
Original.
That should have put it up a bit. Yeah, that's right.
It's
All
got-
right, so
it's
we'll
got
just get all
Gaz
this in
DNA.
here.
That's it, yeah. We can-
33, Gav, 33.
Done. That should double it. Yeah, I'll be in trouble.
$5 for a
I'll be in
load.
trouble for that one when I get home. Why not, Robbo?
Yes.
All right. I should never drink before I do these things. Yeah. All right.
A few times and you lose everything.
Yeah. And you can see how much stiffer this feather is. Rightio, where's my brush on?
Benji Fox is
Full cap.
But you can see how strong those barbells are, you know, off the feather. It gets rid of all the shit that's not spun in properly, right? And if you have to be delicate with it, trust me, a fish is not going to be delicate with it. So if you want to be delicate with it, then it's not going to be strong enough, you know?
Flathead teeth.
Hey?
Flathead teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Chewy.
Right, so I've wound that right in hard against the eyes. Now I'm going to come forward and tie it off. And come back again. Now, it always looks shit house when you first put it in until you actually pull everything out. And don't be rough with it, you know, gee, knock it around a bit. Because you don't want it to fall apart when a fish gets into it. What you want to do is create your taper, right? So we've got our nice head taper on that. Now we'll create our head. And pull it off, right? So, yep.
Stringent knots.
I'll just dry this off a little bit.